Hello crafty friends and welcome back. Today, as promised, I'm going to show you how I made my giant gingerbread house. So the whole thing starts off with a cardboard colouring in house that you can pick up from Hobbycraft. They are actually on sale at the moment. Because my window ledge is narrow, I had to go ahead and cut this whole thing in half. I decided to actually put the roof on upside down, which is why it's got no colouring in on it. And that was just because I wanted the chimney to be closer to the front. And I went ahead and trimmed everything right down the middle, cut off any of the excess scalloped edge on the back half of the house so it would be slightly narrower and I would be able to push the two pieces inside of each other. So here I have the two halves and I'm just going to slot one inside of the other and then go around all of the edges with some tape to hold it together. With hindsight, I wish I'd gone ahead and hot glued this. The tape wasn't the best idea because you can see the texture of it, but there we go. Then I used some spray paint. I started off with this one. I don't know why I thought it would be a gingerbread colour, but I think it adds something in the end to have this kind of red tone in the background. But I went over this paprika spray paint. I used 2 tins and yeah, it didn't look like gingerbread, so I went over it with this brown and I think it actually looks really, really good now. It kind of has some of that red shine through. So now we need candy to decorate this. I started off with some foam sheets. I have a few different colours. I've got a light green, a dark green, some white, and also I added in some red. And I'm using my paper trimmer to cut this down into 1-inch strips. This cuts really easy with a paper trimmer. You could also use like an X-Acto knife and a straight edge or a pair of scissors, whatever you have to hand. You just want to trim it down to small pieces. I found that 1 inch worked about right for what I'm after. And then you're going to lay them one on top of the other. I decided it was a bit easier through like trial and error if I offset them slightly at the start, and you want to roll it nice and tight together and then add a little dot of hot glue and continue rolling. I alternate between wearing that finger protector. If you've been here for a while, you know I am a danger to myself with a hot glue gun. I frequently burn myself. So yeah, I should wear these finger protectors more often, but they don't fit that great. I need to find a smaller size. They fit wonderfully on my thumb, but not on my index fingers. Anyway, when you get to the end, you want to just trim off the excess and add a little bit more hot glue to kind of seal this up. And then you've made your first little swirl. You can make a whole bunch of different designs with this, but I kept it simple by just making these swirls and making sure the inside was always white. I did experiment with making the outside white on a few of these, but I didn't really like it in the end, so I just used the ones where the inside was white. So next we have the big peppermints. I made these in 2 different sizes, so large and small, and I started off by painting these cake plates in white. I could have got the thicker ones, so like the cake bases, but they're a little bit more expensive and a little bit heavier, and I wanted to make sure that this would all hold up nicely. So I used these thin ones that you usually use between layers of a cake when you're stacking it up. At least I think that's what they're used for. And then once they were dry, I estimated where the middle was and used the edge of one of the circles as a template. And I went all the way around just drawing curves. You could get really technical with this and measure it out, but I just eyeballed it and it worked out okay. The only thing that you do want to make sure, and you'll see me counting at the end just to be certain, you want to make sure that you have a odd number of these segments, because I'm going to alternate the painting between red and white. So when I kind of get the whole way around the circle, I don't want 2 reds next to each other. So I'm just using this as a guide for where I'll place my paint. You can't see these pencil lines when you're finished. You can see me counting it up here just to make sure. And then drawing that in. You could make yourself a template if you wanted all of these to look exactly the same by folding up a piece of white paper and cutting out the sections so you could use it as a little template, but I just freehand it. So now I want to add the red paint. I'm using a sponge paintbrush and some just inexpensive red acrylic paint, and I'm working pretty slowly because I want those edges to be nice and neat. And I'm adding the red paint all the way around. One thing that I did find was easier, and this is probably because I'm right-handed, it would be the other way around if you're left-handed, but I found that doing the outside edge of the curve was easiest kind of pulling towards me, and the inside edge was easiest if I worked the other way around. You'll see what I mean in just a second. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm painting along one edge and just making sure that that is as neat as I can get it. I am going to add glitter to this, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And then, as you can see, I just flip it around and go in the opposite direction and fill in those segments. So I've got the alternating paint colour between the red and the white. So I do end up adding some green to this the largest design, but I'll show you how I do that. I just did that with the glitter rather than adding an additional layer of paint, and the paint's just there to help fill in any of the gaps through the glitter. So once I'd painted them all and they were dry, it was time to grab my glitter. This is Hemway Craft Glitter, and I bought this using a discount code that my friend Claire has. I'll include a link to that below and a link to her YouTube so you can take advantage of that. And here I'm just using a foam paintbrush again and painting on some PVA glue. So I'm going to use my most intense kind of colour of glitter first, which is the red. My reason for doing this is that if any of the glue is still wet, so let's say I did the white area first and any of that glue was still exposed and wet, then when I pour the red on top, I didn't want it to stick in the white section, but it's not so bad if the white glitter sticks in the red section. So it made sense to me to work it around this way. So I'm going to cover it in glue, sprinkle on the glitter, and then get rid of the excess onto a scrap of cardboard. And I actually have 2 of these scraps, and you'll see here I'll fill in the next section. I only worked in 2 sections maximum at a time because I didn't want the glue to dry too much. And although it looks like I'm doing this quite quick, I do have this video sped up just in the editing so we can get through it. And I didn't want the glue to be too dry that it wouldn't hold the glitter. Now, one thing that I did mean to do when I was finished with this is to spray them lightly with hairspray, because I have heard on the interwebs that that helps to keep the glitter in place. I didn't try it, and there hasn't been too much fallout, so I'm okay with it. Oh, and I totally lied. I did 3 sections here. I must have been working faster. So here I have another scrap of cardboard, and I'm just going to tip the excess over the top and then add some more from my little shaker pot and make sure all of that glue's covered and then tip off the excess. So I did this to all of my peppermints, working with the red colour first, and then for the largest peppermints I'm going to add some green. And I did draw a line, you may have caught sight of it as I'm working here. I drew a line just using a green highlighter pen through the middle of the white so I'd have somewhere to aim for my glue placement, and I just used a small paintbrush to do a line of glue. These aren't perfect, but I'm really pleased with how they came out. I think they look great just as they are. You could definitely get really technical with this and create a stencil or even like a vinyl stencil, but I think they look really nice with that kind of rustic edge to them. So once I'd finished adding the green, I went back with another layer of glue, and this time I'm adding the white glitter. You can't see this so much in camera, but in person it looks just beautiful, and you'll see that in the footage at the end where I show some close-ups of the gingerbread house. And finally, I left the small ones just red and white. So now I'm going to make some gumdrops. I'm using these little Easter egg treat holders, I guess, these little plastic shapes. I thought they were perfect for gumdrops. And I actually had to make these twice. The first time it didn't work. I'd seen a post on Pinterest about how to make these, where you cover them in glue and dip them in Epsom salts. And I made them. I thought they looked incredible. And about a day or 2 later, all the Epsom salts started to fall off. So I had to go back to the drawing board, but at least you can learn from my mistakes. So here I covered them in glue, and you can see the glue kind of separates away from the plastic. I'm just using PVA glue again, but it doesn't really stick very well to this plastic. You could problem solve this by maybe sanding the plastic down so it's got a rougher surface, but I felt like that might dull the colour of these gumdrops. So instead I covered them in a single layer of tissue paper. Now I wasn't particularly careful with this. It is kind of scrunched around, so there's some areas that are thicker, but I knew it was going to get covered with the Epsom salt, so that would cover it up. So once that had all dried, the tissue paper was completely dry, I add another layer of glue and then dip it into the Epsom salts, and it's like magic. It just looks like the perfect sugary gumdrop treat. I think it looks really great. And these were already coloured, the colours of the rainbow, which worked perfectly for this. I didn't have to add any paint. This is a really easy one if you're looking to make like large fake sweets for a gingerbread house or for party decorations or whatever it is that you're trying to DIY. I would definitely recommend this. So I'm just going to work through covering all of these, and just to let you know, I did also pick up some large styrofoam balls and styrofoam egg shapes with the intention of making even bigger versions of this by painting them first and then covering in the Epsom salts, but I found that I didn't need them. I actually didn't have as much room as I thought I was going to have on my window ledge display at my gingerbread house, so there's a couple of the giant gumdrops here and there, but I didn't use all of what I had. So we are going hands-free because I lost the footage of me decorating this gingerbread house and I am not about to start again. So first thing I did was I added some fake icing just by hot gluing fluffy white yarn all around the sides of the windows. I went around, a lot of this got covered up. I went around the bottoms. Texture's very interested in what we're doing here. So I added that, so we had this fake icing look. Then I completely covered the roof in this like, what did I just call it? Fluffy yarn, in this fluffy yarn. Now, it took a little while to hot glue all this down. I could probably have just used this like snow blanket material and it would have looked the same, but here we go, it feels nice. Then I used hot glue to attach my gumdrops. I added some of the small peppermints to the chimney and I piped around them using decorating cork. I've used this in a few videos recently, and I'll have it linked below. Then I added some toy stuffing as my smoke coming out the chimney. I have this pack of Christmas lights that is battery operated and was really inexpensive, and I've attached that just using some command hooks. So next I decided to go all around the door, hot gluing on these little swirl decorations that we made earlier in the video, and I also added some more decorator's cork just so it would look like chunky icing. The wreath on the door is my Quality Street wreath. You can actually pick these out and eat them, although I've been trying not to until I get my video done. And you can see how I made this in my 10 Poundland DIY videos. These are window clings, which I also picked up in Poundland. I cut around them so there wouldn't be quite so much of that plastic, and then used some Mod Podge to stick them together. Dexter, you okay? You leave them snowballs. This isn't quite finished. I'm going to add some vinyl to this bucket. So then for the door handle, I made a giant pom-pom out of the same yarn that I used as my fake icing. Uh-oh. Then I added the rest of the peppermints, these big pieces here, so these giant like peppermint sticks that I've used at the sides and along the bottom. These are actually like pipe insulation, no. These are like pipe insulation, so they come like that. Well, I mean, they don't, this is duct tape. I cut them in half and then wrapped it in white duct tape and then some red duct tape, very similar to how I did the lollipop sticks, if you can see those. I actually painted those white and then wrapped them in the red. If you haven't seen that video on how I made the lollipops, I'll have that linked. So for these, I went ahead and wrapped them in white duct tape rather than painting them, and then added the red duct tape for that candy cane or kind of peppermint feel to it. These are supposed to be Christmas tree decorations. You can kind of see where I've pulled out the attachment on some of them. So I went ahead and hot glued these on just kind of to form a little heart shape. I felt like they filled in some spaces and added something extra. And I think that is everything. Sorry, the lighting's really bad on this. It keeps getting sunny and kind of you can't really see what's going on, but I wanted to get some footage of you being able to see this, and look how glittery those peppermints are. I love how they turned out. So you are back to voiceover Laura. Hello. I'm just showing you a bit of a close-up of the gingerbread house here. This was before I added it to the window display, and I'll show you step by step how I put together the window display if you are interested. So first things, you want a nice blank canvas, so I cleaned the window ledge, made sure to hoover underneath it so everything was nice and clean, and then I used some floral foam and cut it down and pressed it inside of these bricks. I have a whole bunch of spare bricks in my garden. I don't know why, they were here when we moved in, and they worked perfectly for this. So I've placed them on the window ledge and covered them in the snow blanket. I'll have links to everything that I can remember to link below in the description below, so check it out. If something's not there, drop me a comment. And then I'm going to place the lollipops through the foam inside of those bricks and also those candy canes. These are light up candy canes from Amazon. Then I'm adding these paper snowflakes from Poundland. And then I'll put in the gingerbread house. I'm going to add some more decoration to the blinds by hanging up some mini candy canes. They're the same ones that are hot glued to the gingerbread house. And that is it pretty much finished. I do have this snowball bucket that I need to finish up with some vinyl wording. I'll put a picture on Instagram when that is finished, and I'll include a link to where I bought those faux snowballs from as well. So here it is with the lights on, and I've added the spare peppermints just around in the background and some of those large gumdrops. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you're feeling inspired to make your own giant gingerbread house. If you do, I would love to see it. You can tag me on Instagram at CraftyNotShifty, and you can find links to all my social media in the description below. Thank you for sticking with me until the end of the video. If you're new here, you can go ahead and hit subscribe, and if you haven't yet, you can ring the bell to be notified when I post a new video. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope to see you back here again soon. Bye for now.